From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicki Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
Miss Vicki.
Yes, sir.
You know what?
What?
I've been thinking about this Sentinel system.
Yeah. Tell me about the Sentinel system.
So what I was thinking was, we have the one car that's got the aim dash that's slowing us down. Because installing the aim dash is actually, it probably is easy, but it's quite hard the first time. And we haven't figured that out yet. The Sentinel system is really easy to set up. So what I was thinking was, why don't we put it in the Lemons car? And we'll worry about the aim data information separately. And we'll kind of break it down into a project. Because then we'd have the motorsports video system that we really, really want, and we'd be able to stream it. We just won't have the data inside, but we have the data outside, so we can combine them later. But I think that's a really good solution.
So what does this Sentinel system do?
Well, if it had the aim data, it would have all the data on the screen, and you could see all their telemetry and everything live. But we'd be able to not only record it for viewing after the race, but we could actually watch our car during the race.
Ooh, like on the monitor and everything?
On a monitor, if you were at home and I was at a track, or if you were at the track and I was at home, depends on who gets the short straw, but we'd be able to watch each other.
It's something I've always wanted to do.
And you know what? If you're driving, you know what you can do on the Sentinel system?
What's that?
You can communicate to me with your hands, and I can't do a thing about it.
Even better.
So, if you need to give a wave or a Jersey wave, whatever you need, we could save it and see it on the screen. And then you can have up to 3 different cameras, and it'll have picture in picture. You'll have the basic main shot out the front window, and then 2 cameras where you put them wherever you want. One could be on the driver, or one could be on the rear view. It's kind of cool.
Then we can upload it onto YouTube.
We could bore millions of people on YouTube.
I love it.
All right. Very well. You know what the only downside I see about this?
What?
Your mom and my mom are going to be panic stricken the entire weekend watching this thing to see if everything's going well.
This is true.
We probably shouldn't tell them.
I like the idea of having a Sentinel.
Mm-hmm. Well, luckily we have maybe 2. Depends on how things go. We're going to try. All right. That sounds like a plan. That's the project. We got to get that ready for the next race.
Sounds great.
All right. Very well. Thank you, ma'am. Ben Dawson, we're getting close to the end of this episode. We need to do something. We're not going to make it, Ben.
Oh, gosh, what can we do to kind of preserve the momentum that we have going?
Ben, we've got 45 minutes left in this race, and we've only got fuel for 30. What are we going to do?
Well, if we want to win, we're going to have to kind of conserve some, I guess.
I don't know how to do that, Ben. Is there a way to what we need? We need one of those planes with that bucket that flies right next to us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we just kind of go into the funnel, and we'll just top it off. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's just douse us. Speaking of which, have you seen that video of the people who were trying to put gas in their boat?
No.
They just put it down. They put it down a drain hole, and they realized they spent like $300 something on gas, and they were just pouring it right into the ground. Just right onto the ground at the gas station.
Oh, that's
these holes that goes from the top of the boat to the bottom, some sort of drainage thing, and they just pour it. Like somebody comes out, hey, what are you doing? Anyway, that's not how to conserve fuel. That's the number one way.
That's not
going
to help us finish, Ben.
Conserving fuel is one of these things that comes up in endurance racing a lot. When it's like, man, maybe if we could conserve fuel throughout the day we can get by with one fewer stop. So it means we're gonna try to kind of stretch our stops out a little bit by using less fuel every lap that we drive, which means we're going to go slower, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that a lot of times when people are trying to do the things that they do to conserve fuel, they end up not going that much slower. When we talk about things that you can do in the car to conserve some fuel, instead of, if you typically are braking at the end of a straightaway at the 3 marker, instead of holding the throttle wide open all the way until you switch feet with the brake, and coming hard off the throttle at the 3 marker, you might still want to brake at the 3. But just go ahead and roll out of the throttle as further up the straightaway. So just go ahead and start easing out of the throttle, and you might even be able to apply the brakes a little bit later than the 3 board. If you're already starting to slow a little bit by letting up the throttle, you can try braking a little bit deeper to compensate. But getting out of the throttle at the at the flag stand on something like that at your local track or something like that. If you're used to driving all the way down, try getting off at the flag stand and see how much slower that makes you. See if your competition's eating your lunch. But if you're in an endurance race and say you've got a lap or 2 lead over the field, and suddenly it's like like you said at the beginning of the episode, we got 45 minutes left and enough fuel for 30 minutes. Can you start letting off way early? Every straightaway, and sure, the car behind you is going to catch you 5 seconds a lap, but you only need to go this many more laps. You know what I mean? There's some things you can do where you can have the driver slow way down on track, especially if you've got a fairly big advantage on who you're trying to beat. It doesn't have to be a class lead. It might just be that I'm trying to come in 7th and 8th is 5 laps back. So
just finish.
Yeah, or I'm just trying to finish without having to stop again. So I can try to just get on the gas and then let off halfway down every straight section. Just see what that does for you. May not even take that much pace off, because then again you might be able to compensate in other ways by braking later and deeper. But another thing that people will do, instead of shifting their gears where they usually would if they're making their best power at 7,000 RPM and they're shifting at 7,000 every lap, you might want to shift that Miata at 4,500. Instead of trying to rev it all the way out to 7 grand or something like that. That won't consume as much fuel either. So a couple of the big things that you'll hear potentially for conserving fuel on track are short shifting, which means we're not running the engine out, not running each gear out to the full rev range that you normally would, where your engine's making the best power, whether the dyno told you or the internet told you where you're making the best power, but where you usually shift. Or also just rolling out of the throttle, which means just taking your foot off the gas pedal, way further up track. Not driving deep with the full throttle all the way down into the brake zone. Maybe try letting off halfway down the straightaway or something, and see what that does for you. But those are techniques that they're the most common that I hear for conserving fuel. What do you think, Bill?
Well, if you're trying to conserve gas, the thing that comes to my mind is, try to use the brake as little as possible, because that's the anti-gas pedal.
Sure. Yeah. Especially if you're not as aggressive with a throttle, you should be able to get by with less brake, right?
And get as much as you can. The other thing that a lot of people will find works, it's kind of car dependent and track dependent to a point.
Sure.
But try running the car at a higher gear.
Sure. Oh yeah, that's a great point. You're right. Yeah, if you're used to being in 4th gear in this section, see what your car does in 5th through there. Might not be that different. You find out.
Might not be a whole lot different. So occasionally we found on our team, this is strictly a rumor, and I'm not going to say that it's factually accurate, but occasionally the running at the higher gear was actually faster than
staggering.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I've had a chance to drive some BMW cars that were geared a little bit differently at VIR, where there's a couple of places where it's faster to be in 4th gear at lower revs than to be wound out in 3rd gear, and then just a place where you could have left it in 4th and kept the revs in this sort of a lower band, but you could also downshift to 3rd for a second, then have to be shifted back to 4th on the corner exit or something like that. So there are places where it feels slower but is faster.
Yeah, usually it sounds slower.
Yeah, right. Because you're not screaming at high revs or anything, so it doesn't feel like you're doing much, right? You're I feel like I'm just loping along at 4,000 here, and I like to be at 7 grand.
I so much more noise up here. So
It sounds so cool. Yeah.
it does. It does. So what do you think about the lift and coast versus the partial lift and coast? You have any feelings for that, or you use them both?
I'm not. I should have done a disclaimer at the beginning of this that I'm not the world's most effective fuel saver or good at it.
I'm sure anybody who's listened to you, Ben, realizes that this is not your strong point. This is not the hey, how fast can I get this little puppy to go around this track? This is not.
This is
this is anti-Ben.
This is me explaining why some people go to church to my 5-year-old. Anyway, so you're saying like just fully coming off the gas and just rolling it out to where you intend to brake versus going half throttle. Shit, I mean that's one of those distinctions that you won't know until you've done it in your car and tried both ways for a significant amount of time and gather data, right? Like, all right, go out there, give me a stint, everything at full throttle, then go out there and give me a stint where you're partial lifting and coasting, at the end of these straightaways, then go out there and do it. I mean, that's one of those things where I can give you my opinion, but it's not really going to tell you anything until you've done some empirical
depends on
data
the track.
gathering. Track versus the car. I mean, I would imagine that a place like AMP, Atlanta Motorsports Park, is really busy. Very few like full throttle long sections. So I would imagine the effects of trying to save fuel there versus a place like Road Atlanta up the road are very different, because Road Atlanta's got big long straightaways and they're not, it's not as big of a point and squirt all the time. Bam, 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 like AMP is. So you might benefit more from your proposed fuel saving strategies at a place like Road Atlanta than at a place where you just go always keep everything on the boil like AMP or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. What are your thoughts on, at our level, does drafting help?
No,
I don't think so either. Doesn't seem to.
It's the only thing drafting is going to do for you at our level, because you're not going to be in a group that's going to draft that long. Like the one exception I've had in endurance racing was like my first AER race. I ended up with the Gaggle Miatas, and we stayed together for most of my stint, and it was fun. And we were all bump drafting each other along, and like I worked my way to the front of that group, and it had the least amount of power. So the big benefit I got from the draft was just having people come up and just ram into my back bumper and give me extra like 10 horsepower I needed to stay in front. But no, I mean, and the people behind me might have gotten a little bit of benefit from being behind me and kind of, instead of having to cut the wind themselves, they were just bumping me along to be out there breaking the wind, so to speak. Not a fart joke. Can be a fart joke if you thought it was funny, though.
It's not your best.
You're not gonna get a fuel benefit from drafting anybody on the racetrack. And I think if you were getting so sucked into trying to draft with somebody is to save fuel, you might also be in danger of getting target fixation and just running up their ass as soon as they had to slow down more than you expected to. So I don't know. I've never thought about trying to draft anybody to save fuel on the racetrack. That's not where I would do that.
you know where one of the best ways to save fuel is?
Where?
Yellow flags.
Yeah, tell me more. What do you do on a yellow flag?
Nothing like a yellow flag for that fuel savings to just whoosh, Do
you do anything in particular on a yellow flag though, for real, to try to save fuel? Like you run it in fifth gear, everything in fifth gear?
I try to not touch the brake.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
I try to figure out what I can do to basically lift and coast and, partial throttle the whole way and no brake, because the brake's just negative gas.
Yeah. When you hit the brake, you're going to have to make it back up
somewhere.
Yeah. You're going to have to use a bunch of gas to get that speed back.
Or it's just like when you're on the highway, right? And you're going down the hill and you're going up a hill soon. You don't start pushing the gas on the way up the hill. You should push it on the way down the hill and get a little bit more oomph going up the hill.
Unless it's a speed trap. Unless it's a speed trap.
Yeah, unless it's a speed trap. There's very few speed traps on the track, though.
That's true. Good points.
Any other thoughts on?
I mean, if you and your team are in the mode of trying to think like, here's where we are, we need to save some fuel, just take a strategic look around you at who you're trying to beat and try to make a decision about whether it's worth trying to push hard Get everything you can out of the pace of the car and try to make one more stop. What are they going to do? Are they going to have to stop again?
Yep.
Did you send the spy down to ask them what their plan was? You know what I mean? Like, just try to be attacking it from all angles before you start trying to make a bunch of big decisions about how you're going to change how you drive the car. Find out what your competition is doing if you can. Because also, it's an endurance race. There's time. You know what I mean? Like, none of this stuff none of these revelations about like, oh, we need to save fuel, or oh, this might be a problem. None of that stuff should be a big surprise. And also none of it should slap you in the face, in a hurry. It's like, oh yeah, maybe we should start to save some fuel in the next couple of hours. So you got time to kind of figure out, you got time to orient yourself with what's happening in the race with your competition, what potential you have to do with your car, and then you can make a decision. I mean, you might end up just saying, hey, let's just keep pushing this thing hard because we're beating them. And even if they have to stop again and we do a splash and dash, our splash and dash, sorry, that means just coming in and throwing a little bit of fuel in the car to make it to the end of the race. Our splash and dash might take X amount of seconds, but we're beating them by this many seconds a lap, and we're already this far ahead. So let's just keep pushing. We're going to make it even if we have to stop again. You know what I mean? So do the math. And I say all that like I'm the one who would ever do that math. I'm not.
Nope.
But it was my idea to tell somebody else who's smart to think about it. So, if we win, Ben won the race.
There's a much higher probability of you calling me not at the track to do that math for you than you're doing that math.
I feel like I've done that several times already.
Oh, by the way, remember when we did the intro to this and I said you got 30 minutes of gas and 45 minutes of track left? You're not going to be able to do something that big, right?
No, you're not. That's a big swing. That's a
big swing. However, like you just said, if you notice you needed that 15 more minutes, 2 hours from the end,
right?
That's more doable.
Right. You're like, if the way the day shakes out, your car goes 2 hours, but there's, 2 hours and 15 minutes left when you send your last driver out with an absolutely full tank of gas. That's when you talk to him about it. Like, hey, Fred, look, man, I know you've been having fun really going out there and blasting everybody's nips off with how fast you are, but now I'm going to need you to go slow because the car behind us is 2 laps down. You can lose 10 seconds a lap to him if you just, whatever the number is. I'm just making up a random number, but yeah, I mean, and so
easily
Fred's
5.
probably not going to have that much fun in his stint going out there going slow. He's just getting passed by some cars who he had ruthlessly passed earlier in his previous stint. They're going to pass him. They might be like, ha ha, look at y'all, I'm passing you. It doesn't matter because you're still going to be holding your spot where you wanted to finish. Anyway, it's not always comfortable saving fuel. And it's not always the most fun thing. And somebody who you're driving with might just go, hey, screw it. It's going to go how it's going to go. I want to go do track day laps and have a bunch of fun in this car. And sometimes that may just be a factor too. Like, hey, just go drive the car. What does it matter? You know what I mean? That also might be part of your fuel saving conversation. Somebody might be like, hey, I paid $1,500 to race with you guys. I'm not going to go out there and lope around for us to come in 7th or 8th. I'm going to go out there. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, be prepared for all kinds of conversations to come up because we're often driving and racing with random people who don't necessarily share the same goals that we do. They may go, no, I've rented this badass race car. I'm going to go out there and drive it 100% because that's what I paid to come do. And, if we don't, we come in 9th versus 8th, who cares? I had fun, so that's something that might come up too.
Yeah. Usually I'm only concerned about this when it's like victories and stuff. You know what we didn't mention? Rolling onto the gas as opposed to just stomping on the gas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm such a Miata person. I've never even really thought about that. But yeah, I'm sure that's significant.
Well, if you have a gas pedal that's hooked up to something that actually has power, we might have to worry about these things.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an important footnote, Bill. You're talking about just rolling onto the throttle versus standing on it, like you're at a stoplight and you're trying to race a teenager or something.
Just a little bit. I mean, we're not talking, you're not going to save thousands of miles here. You're not going to go from a 2-hour stint to a 3-hour stint, but you might be able to get 15 minutes extra.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. The way that you ramp up the throttle can have an effect on how much fuel that you're using, instead of just pulling it full mast right away.
And if you've got any other ideas that we've forgotten to talk about, we'll do it again in a future Dominating with Dawson.
I'm sure there are plenty of other ones. One thing I could think of to do right now.
What's that?
If I just wanted to slow a whole team down, I would just move where the throttle stops. I would just move the throttle. Move the throttle stop and hope nobody notices. Like, I feel like we've only got like 3/4 of the power we used to have, but look how long we're going. We're
The
going like
car is
hour
low
and,
power.
we're going like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel like we're going anywhere.
I can see
I'm just
that.
kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that to your teammates. They might shank you.
Well, as long as it's adjustable, so you know to pull it out when you're in the car, I don't see a problem with it, Ben.
That's right.
How is he 15 seconds a lot faster than we are?
Guys, it's a little something called skill. It's a little something called consistency. Okay.
I've been practicing. You know what else is a great way to save it and get that little extra?
What's that?
Have a yellow flag come out and you just come in and just do a little extra.
There you go. Look, we fixed it.
Yep, we're all good now.
All right.
All right, sir. I think we've milked this one. I think we're getting to the end. I think we're almost. Oh, we just finished.
Oh, I just ran out of gas.
That's right. Very nice. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Appreciate it.